Welcome back to another episode of Riv Academy on this beautiful, actually, it's not even beautiful, on this gloomy, rainy Sunday, football Sunday. I know I've been pretty much tapped in with the football scenery, making some picks, doing a little bit more intel than what I did last year. And I promised you guys will get an NBA season out of me for Riv Academy. I got some important stuff going on next week. Me and John have a playoff game, and we're playing against each other in our men's league game. So that's going to be exciting. Maybe I can get some content for you guys from there. But today we're going to be talking about Denver. And, of course, I can't talk about Denver without bringing on a friend of the show. So without further ado.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Mr.
How you doing?
Jack, a.k.a. Jokicjoestar.
How you doing?
Jack?
It's Jokic, like with a Y at the beginning, just normal, and then Joestar. That's how I say it. But like,
brother, I'm not good with names. I still get Fox's name wrong. I say De'Arian or like I'm just not the guy when it comes to names. But
yeah.
Brother, how are you, man? How's it in? I didn't even know you lived on the East Coast. It kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I'm in DC. And it's fucking dog shit outside. The same way. I mean, all up and down the East Coast right now, it's like the same weather. Has been all week. It's just disgusting out. It's humid as shit. Like the weird little misty rain and all that. So yeah, just chilling inside, thinking about how the Denver Nuggets just dominated this offseason, baby. One of the best in the league. Oh my god.
Yeah. Are you guys getting the hurricane that hit Florida, or it's not coming up here?
I think it'll like we'll get like windy rain, but it's not gonna be like destroying shit or like flooding anything.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I mean, I would love if I work at a school. I would love if we can get a few days off just to chill, relax. I would love that. But okay, cool. We're not getting that. I do know we have off this Thursday because it's Rosh Hashanah. So
Nice.
Congratulations to the I don't know, is that Jewish? I believe it is Jewish. I don't know.
Congratulations to everyone who works at a school. You got the day off.
We're off Thursday. But you talked about how Denver this summer. They did everything they needed to do, and they really aced what they needed to improve at. And let's jump into the conversation. Yeah. So I want to start with something that I'm sure you've seen yesterday or 2 days ago. It was Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook, he's a respected guy in the NBA, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt in my mind. Made a change, left the Clippers, went to Denver. He came out with some comments. I believe it was I seen it yesterday. Let me start doing that. I seen it yesterday, and the comments were him saying, he's a unique player, which I agree. He is a very unique player in NBA history. But he also said something that I think we're gonna chop it up a little bit about. He said that his teams did not fit around him, or he didn't fit in the proper offense, something along those lines, where he wasn't. How do I want to? I don't want to copy. I don't want to mess up what he said, but he basically said teams didn't build properly around him, and that they didn't fit around his skills.
I think the quote exactly was like, "I'm a unique player, and the teams that I was on before didn't like let me be unique." Or something like that.
So what's your thoughts on that? Because in my opinion, I felt like the Clippers. He was playing fine until the playoffs happened, which is usually how everything does happen for Westbrook in his career, unfortunately. But I felt like the vibes were there. He was home. He was with the Clippers. He was coming off the bench. He was playing well. They get Harden. He comes like he was still playing well. I felt like he was the energy. He was playing defense, rebounding for the team. His offense, his scoring has taken a noticeable dip over the last couple of years. But I felt like he was doing everything he needed to do. It's just in the playoffs. Of course, Westbrook, without that three-point shot, the mid-range shot has fallen off a cliff. He becomes, a lot easier to guard. And when you're not the primary guy, it's kind of hard to get in rhythm, of course. But what's your thoughts with him saying that and now him walking into Denver where he's not going to be one of the primary guys?
I guess one of the things, like the second they signed Russell Westbrook, one of the things that you kind of get ready for is just like this storm that comes with him of like he's kind of like Kyrie in the sense that like tons of people who love him, tons of people who hate him, and the media is always willing to like take a quote from him and like spin it, whether they want to like generate clicks through hate or get people who like him on board, whatever they want to do. It's just like this entire media sphere around him. And this was like my first real taste of that, where he said that. And do I think it's 100% true? No. I think teams like they especially the Clippers, they worked to like make him comfortable. I think bringing in James Harden, that's tough for him because he's worse than James Harden, and James Harden does a lot of the same shit. So like if you're Westbrook and in your mind you're trying to like be a big factor as like a playmaker or running this offense or whatever, when James Harden's on the floor, you're not going to be allowed to do that. At the same time, I don't think it's like completely wrong either. I think if you're looking for a situation in his career post Oklahoma City where he's just had somebody making his life incredibly easy, I think playing off of Jokic is the best spot for that so far. And I don't know how well it's going to work out because so much of like his high level skills have kind of deteriorated in terms of like finishing at the rim. Incredibly rough, especially in the postseason for the Clippers last year. Like you said, the mid range had fallen off, but overall, I don't know. Like I'm on the cope part with Westbrook right now, where I'm like, hey, you know, he's here. We have to do this experiment to see what happens. And he was one of like their official targets this offseason. That was like another big thing in the Denver media cycle, was like they have 2 goals this offseason: sign Saric and sign Westbrook, and they got those done. And I mean, whether or not those are good goals, it's yet to be seen. But if that's how they feel confident building out this team, then I guess, I don't know, I have no choice but just to like see how it works out, I guess.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those guys that watched every Golden State Warriors game. And it's tough for me because I'm on the East Coast. So 10 o'clock, 10:30, I'm there. I'm there. I am there to watch Steph and them boys. Same thing for the Clippers. If Paul George is playing, 10 o'clock, 10:30, I am there, sleeping, laying in the bed. One eye open. I'm watching.
Hey, the Sixers, you're good this year then.
No, now I get beautiful times, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It's great. I watched Dario Saric. It was hard. I watched Westbrook. It was hard at times. I think him saying, because like you mentioned, you look at his career, right? I think we can exclude the Kevin Durant years and just talk about after. I thought those teams with him and Paul George didn't quite fit their style in terms of just a lot of spacing, a lot of shooters on the court. But him and Paul George fit amazing, like as a duo. Mm-hmm. I thought him and Harden in Houston was pretty good until Westbrook got hurt later in the year. But I thought it was solid. You had 2 dominant ball handlers, a bunch of ideal shooters around you. It is small ball, but you made it work. And then like the Lakers, of course not. No, the Lakers was a generational bad fit. It was it was awful. Clippers first go around, dope. You mentioned it. Harden getting there kind of makes you feel like, well, you're gonna get put to the bench. But I think, like you mentioned it, Westbrook has this storm. He has this cloud that's been him. He is he is very big in terms of the media just talking about him, So I think him going to Denver and the Jokic calling for like wanting him was something that obviously you have to feel confident about, that it may or may not work. When you first heard the signings of Westbrook and Saric, were you kind of like what was your goals going into like this offseason? Because I know you guys, first of all, you choked.
My God, dude!
Like what happened? Let's stop. Let's walk back. We skipped so much, and that's me. It's just Westbrook. Like he's such a storm that we had to talk about that. But let's walk back. Second round, you get your ass whipped first 2 games. Like in Denver, Minnesota walks in there, and they own you guys. But then you bounce back the next 2 games in Minnesota. So you're like, all right, we're feeling good. Game 5, you go in there. Jokic.
It's one of the best Jokic games of all time.
Jokic master class. He put on a fucking show. Game 6, you lay an egg. Let's you lay an egg. Yeah. You had an opportunity. You guys I think they whipped your ass bad.
It was game. It was one of those because Ant hit this in the camera.
Yeah, it was bad. And then game 7, the best two words we love to hear in NBA history. Game 7, the playoffs. Walk me through it, man. What happened in that game?
Oh my God. It's crazy how much, like, in the past few weeks, I've kind of revisited how the season ended, like gearing up for next year and everything. It is crazy how much that series I completely just like PTSD'd out of. Like, it ended and I just stopped fucking thinking. I could not evaluate it because it was so painful. Just, yeah. So, like, in game 7 specifically, I guess the whole, again, this is cope at this point. Like, they fucking choked, they lost, they blew it. The justification for blowing a 20-point lead at home in game 7 is the lack of depth and just the complete inability, especially with like the level that Jamal Murray was at, which we'll get into that, I'm sure. I don't personally believe that's like indicative of who he really is as a player. But like where he was at in that series in game 7, how Minnesota was fucking him up with the ball in his hands a lot of the times, there was no way for Jokic to get any sort of rest. And I think we really saw that in the second half. Everybody just ran out of gas. Jokic ran out of gas. And when that happens, Denver's entire attack offensively just completely falls apart. There's really not that much to do if you can't look to Jokic and be like, okay, this is an automatic basket if we get it to him in the post or something. Minnesota just had so much size, and Denver was so tired that they just fucking smoked it. I think another part of it was Karl Anthony Towns had like a huge second half, and that was a clear thing where all of his biggest plays were like hustle plays. Like he's getting rebound putback dunks. He's playing up and down the floor defensively. He's working a lot harder than Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. are, who, I mean, those are the guys that are supposed to be boxing him out. And I mean, he's going wherever he wants. If you go back and watch that game 7, nobody is getting a body on him at all. And so, yeah, I guess the thing people point to is the bench. The other thing that I would point to, I don't have
it on Twitter. I know you've seen on Twitter the videos that are just surfacing of Jokic's defense in the second half. I know I seen you quote about it, and in the video it was funny because you quoted and you were like, "These are tough finishes," and it was just like
some of them were.
There was one play in the video where the Jokic tried to get a charge, and it was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it was bad.
Oh man, yeah, no, bad defensively. And I think specifically, Malone, he rode out the KCP matchup because KCP's ceiling offensively is a lot higher than having Christian Brown out there. I felt like Brown was doing a better job on Anthony Edwards just because of like the strength difference. It's kind of like what you saw with McDaniels and Luka the next round, where KCP is a little too skinny to stick on Anthony Edwards if he like bumps him and stuff. Brown was doing a good job. But yeah, the thing outside of the bench that I would point to and outside of the defense is just like the complete non-factor shooting out of KCP and Michael Porter Jr. Really, if you go look at like the last 5 or 4 games of the series, I know KCP in game 5, he went 4 of 5 from 3. But outside of that, Michael Porter Jr. is like 19% and KCP is like 25, 26%. Yeah. And yeah, if you're not going to punish teams for collapsing in on Jokic, if that's just a possession that they're allowed to live with, yeah, that doesn't really surprise me that they lose the series. But losing that game in that fashion, you can't just point to one thing. Like it was a meltdown.
Yeah, it shocked the shit out of me because I've never expected Denver to be one of those teams to choke like that game 7 at home. And, even Jason Tatum said another quote that I seen 2 days ago. It was that they thought they were playing Denver. I think we all universally at that point, game 7, I'm pretty sure 90% of the world picked Denver to go into their game 7, their home play. And we felt like Denver was a terrible matchup for Dallas. Like we thought Denver would go in there. Of course, you had other people who thought Dallas would win, but I thought it would be Denver and Boston. Like that's a series. The Joker can get his W against Boston. This is a terrible matchup for Boston. But Minnesota has always been that kind of thorn in Denver's side. And it showed Game 7. Like,
Maybe not anymore. Maybe things have changed.
Yeah, no, look, and now like it's funny because now they've made a move that kind of takes them away from what's been effective against the Denver Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
That Game 7 was rough, and I understand as a fan losing in that type of fashion. I mean, I'm not a Warriors like diehard fan, but I remember 2016. I was a Steph fan. It was hard. I didn't watch basketball probably for like even going into the next season. I was just like, I can't. I need still 3 to 4 months to process what happened. But so Denver, they blow the lead. You go into the offseason. Jamal Murray is probably the most important piece of that series, even like this playoffs, because even in the Lakers series, I felt like he was still not playing to the best of his abilities. And then in Minnesota, they just put him in the box. Like, it was just Jaden McDaniels, Alexander Walker. Like, these dudes were just playing great, amazing pressure defense. And Edwards pretty much put the clamps on him in Game 7 in the second half. He goes into the Olympics. He doesn't play well again. Then he gets this extension. What's your overall feelings on just Jamal Murray's health, how he performed? Like, do you think it was mainly a health thing, or do you think that was just a lack of, explosion, or just bad matchups? Because now you're walking in, you give him this money, a shit ton of money, well-deserved based off the playoffs runs he's had.
Yeah.
But you don't know how fully healthy he's going to be long-term.
Yeah. I mean, that's one part where we just have to see how it works out. You're spot on in the sense that he's getting paid off 2023. And they're just kind of having confidence in him being able to get back to that level. As far as getting to that level over the course of 82 games, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Realistically, I would just hope for him to be a very solid 20 to 22 points and maybe 6 assists a night, which I think is in the ballpark for him based on his previous averages, and then elevate the way he has in previous postseasons. As far as this past playoffs, I do think it was the calf thing. I don't know exactly what his injury was.
Something in his knees. Something. Yeah.
The lift on his jump shot was really bad. The way he was moving around off of Jokic screens was really bad. When you go back and look, it's nice that you have the Lakers matchup right there to go that he dominated that the season prior. And then you watch it this past year, and he had the game winners overwrite everything. Nobody cares about the first 47 minutes of the game. But if he doesn't hit those, I had shit loaded up in my drafts. I was like, dude, he does not look good right now. Austin Reeves is fucking you up. We got to play Jaden McDaniels in 30 minutes. And that's kind of how it panned out. So I think I do think that is more so a health issue. He's not 33 points per game on 60% true shooting against that Wolves team ever. No version of him is. They're that good defensively, but he could be way, way more livable offensively. Just bringing the ball up, it was extremely tough. Getting any sort of separation, especially when Jokic wasn't on the floor, extremely difficult. And so, I think I'm not banking on him becoming a top 7 point guard this upcoming season. But if we could just I think it's realistic to expect him to be able to be a dominant shooter and a dominant scorer playing off of Jokic still. And that's why I wasn't that worried about the Canada shit either. It's just I'm not worried about how he plays without Jokic. If Jokic misses 20 games, the season is a wash. This is not that good of a Nuggets team. And so, that's just a reality that if that happens, the fact that Jamal Murray can't play without him, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, we had a similar. Well, first of all, you saying you don't think he's a top 7 point guard. It's funny because it brought me back to a time on the show we were discussing point guards. And a man told me that he arguably could be top 5. And then the same man told me he was better than John Morant. And I just looked at the man and I'm just like, what are you doing? Just stop. Just please stop. And, now we're sitting here. What was that? I want to say that was after your championship run. So 2023, that summer, I believe. Now we're sitting here and he might not be top 8. So it's, it's just how life works and why people should just wait. Jamal Murray is an interesting character, though, because he is, by all accounts, a really good basketball player. I think he's a top 40 player in the NBA. He's a great shooter. The playmaking is pretty good. Tough shot maker indeed. In the playoffs, he does take it to another level. How much can you credit that to Jokic is one other thing, but the tough shot making is a credit of just his ability. Like, he just elevates at that level. You mentioned it, though. You walked the Lakers down last year, 2 years ago in the WCF. Jamal Murray was crisp. He was crisp against Miami, the Lakers, all those teams. Then this year, you see him struggle a little bit. You're gonna have to play these starters 38 to 42 minutes in the playoffs. That's gonna be a thing. You mentioned how the 3-point shooting has been a lackluster thing. You have no KCP now. Aaron Gordon, he was amazing against Minnesota, but you don't expect him to shoot a good percentage at any point.
Yeah.
What's the thoughts on that? You guys not being, I want to say, over the last 2 years, a good 3-point shooting team, and you guys still up the level at any point. Like, and even the Jokic's 3-point shot looks like it's kind of taking a dip. So, what's your thought process on just a 3-point shooting league, but you guys not being this pretty good, even good or mid 3-point shooting team?
Yeah, I got no fucking idea. I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I have no clue because you have, I think the Michael Porter Jr. aura, it's tanked a little bit.
Right.
If you're looking back 2 years, legitimately respected as like a Dante DiVincenzo level shooter. Like, everybody was like, this is like Klay Thompson shit. You can't affect him at all. Obviously, with the way that Denver lost the Minnesota series, he has lost the respect of a lot of people who are on the fence about him. I still think he'll be a really good shooter. Jamal Murray, like a career 38% guy on pretty solid volume. I think he'll be fine. Outside of that, I have no idea. Denver's whole philosophy for years has kind of been this idea that we'll take enough threes, and then Jokic is so good offensively that if we can like slow the game down and limit how many possessions the other team is getting, we can make the most out of these like very limited possessions. Jokic can generate layups and dunks and like easy free throw line jump shots for people way more consistently than whatever we're going up against. That has been their philosophy for a while. And I just don't know mathematically if that's going to be the case this year. Like, they don't, even if Jokic is like a really solid regular season 3-point shooter, which has not been the case for a while. Like, he's always picked it up in the playoffs. He really didn't this year. But even if he is, Aaron Gordon, not a good shooter. Russell Westbrook, disastrous jump shooter. Christian Brown, again, going back to the Anthony Edwards matchup, I think he's like starter defensively right now. Like, he's a great defender, not a good shooter. Peyton Watson, not a good shooter. Like, just looking at the whole rotation up and down. Dario Saric last year, 37% on 3 attempts, and people are talking about that like it's like a world beater, just because it's like someone who can theoretically make an open.
He's giving up more points on defense than what he's giving you.
Yeah. So I'm not. I really don't know. I don't know. You still have Jokic. I think that's why a lot of people respect this Nuggets team so much. And I'll root for him. I love him. I'll watch him and everything. But when I try to, again, take that cope angle to justify where this team is at and how they can really succeed, when I look around, it's just like it's not a very explosive offense in that regard. And it's not that explosive in the paint either. Like, you have Aaron Gordon and you have Jokic, one of the most dominant paint scorers of all time. But yeah, outside of that, I'm nervous for how this team is going to function offensively.
And that goes right into my next point, because I feel like we're going to have two different, based off the way you were just giving me your vibes, we're going to have two different opinions, because we were talking about, I forgot what we were talking about. We were talking about just teams in the West. And I just felt like Denver was getting a little bit underrated, and I think in a sense, obviously this was prior to the Minnesota trade. Well, how I was thinking this, but I think you had Minnesota, you had OKC, you had Dallas, you had Denver. Those are the 4 horsemen right now. But then you have the Lakers creeping. The Pelicans, if they had a 5, I would respect them, but they don't have a center. The Grizzlies are coming back. We have to wait and see. But I think with Denver, a lot of it is blind faith to a degree. And I was willing to take the little jumper and believe in it because I think Julian Strawther should get more minutes. He's a guy who can hit the 3-point shot. Well, he showed in college that he can hit the 3 ball.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, like I said, this is a lot of blind faith, but you know what I'm saying? I think Denver is getting slept on because I do think their depth, it's not that it's not there. It's just unproven. I do think you guys have a lot of potentially good players on the bench because I think Brown is a locked-in starter. You kind of let KCP walk to kind of give Brown, all right, show me what you got. You have Payne Watson. I think Payne Watson is a great defender. Offense is a little questionable. Has to work on that. You have Russell Westbrook. You have Saric. You have Julian Strawther. I think Deron Holmes would have been fine for you guys off the bench. If he didn't, boom, tears ACL, I believe. He would have been fine. But I think that lineup, like that 10-man rotation, playoff time, obviously sketchy because outside of that 5, who is your next 2 or 3 guys up? You don't want it to be Westbrook. You really don't want it to be Dario Saric. So you're kind of relying on Payton and Strawther to really take a legit leap and kind of, get into that respectable rotation to where you can play them in the playoffs.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that has followed the whole Tim Conley to Calvin Booth transition as far as like GMs go, is that Booth, when he took over, he is the one who really instituted this philosophy of like, we're going to draft our role players and we're going to develop them in-house. And that was not that long ago. And you hit on Christian Brown. You're hoping, I think Watson could be a hit. But like, it's only been a couple of seasons. And so they've really had no time to develop. And there's just been this gap where you don't have any role players left from the Conley administration or whatever you want to say. Like you lost Bruce Brown, you lost Jeff Green, now you've lost KCP, and nobody that you've drafted in the Booth administration to fill those roles is ready to step up. And so you're kind of in no man's land. I will say my pessimism or my vibes right now, it's just in comparison to how I was feeling last year, where I was feeling we match up well with the Celtics. And I think we would have the best player in any playoff series with Jokic and everything. That's how I felt about like the KCP lineups. I really liked, I thought we had maybe the best starting 5 in basketball. I thought Christian Brown was really good. And I felt like our bench was going to be better than it ended up being. It was just unplayable. And so now my vibes, they've been tempered. I don't have the high of like a championship that I'm coming off of anymore. It's just this extremely disappointing loss. And it's like, okay, I think OKC, number 1 in the West. Like I think as far as regular season teams go, they're just the most talented. I think Minnesota took a step back, maybe slightly. It's just like the fit with everybody that they got back in the Cat trade is a little bit clunky. And then I think the Dallas Klay Thompson experiment, the ceiling is super high. It's also the floor is pretty low as far as like if you're running him full-time small forward, what does your team look like defensively and shit? So I think outside of OKC, if Dallas or Minnesota has like a disappointing season, Denver's right there with that level of team. And I think Denver is like still in good position to be like number 4 in the West. Even if like Memphis comes back and they're like a 50-win team firing on all cylinders, I like Denver more than them. And then once you get into like the lower teams in the West, obviously Denver is still better than those guys.
Okay, that makes sense because I think we could talk about it. We could definitely talk about it because it happened. The trade happened at the ass crack of what, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. or something.
It was like late, yeah.
It was late, and over here, New York is over here, so they must have been up calling and stuff. Apparently there was a report, and I wish I remember who did it, but apparently there was a report that this trade has been talked about all summer. Like this trade has been in the works all summer. Okay. So the Nova boys, they don't get to play with each other, sadly enough. That would have been dope to watch. Yeah. So the Nova boys is officially done.
It's cooked. Get them out.
It's cooked before it even started. Minnesota moves Cat. I understand it for financial purposes. They were kind of capped up with all that money they were giving him. What's your thoughts on this team? Because the full details haven't came out yet. We still don't know if Julius Randle is going to stay on Minnesota or he's going to be moved to another team. That has, if we had Woj, this would have locked in already. But we have Shams, who's, he's doing other things. So whatever. So what's your thoughts just initially right now? We're on the assumption that Randle stays with Minnesota. Dante, who I think is the easy guy to he's going to work. He's going to plug in perfectly with them.
Yeah.
Easy plug and play guy. What's your thoughts on this team now? You kind of don't have Cat, which is too big lineup. It worked against teams like OKC. It worked against teams like Denver. And I think it would have fit really well with them. Now you kind of have Rudy, Randall, Jaden, Dante, Ant-Man, Mike Conley, however they want to figure that out. So what's your just thoughts on Minnesota now?
Yeah, I think the backcourt situation is where I start, because like Randall and Gobert, hey, if it works, it works. That sounds like a really tough fit to me. Like it just sounds clunky. But when I look at the backcourt situation, Anthony Edwards obviously starting shooting guard. Mike Conley,
he has to start, right?
Mike Conley felt like impossible to sub out at times for Minnesota's already bad offense last year. And while I think Dante DiVincenzo, second best shooter in the league last season, really, I think he provides a different aspect of offense that they didn't have. He's not initiating the offense. He's not making Rudy Gobert like a playable offensive player in the pick and roll. Mike Conley is doing that. So I think Conley has to start. And so I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, and he described it pretty well. Sorry, I live next to a hospital, so there's an emergency outside. I fucking guess. Sorry, everybody, but yeah, Bill Simmons said that it might be one of those things where the starters, maybe the starters are like breaking even with the other team's starters. Your starting lineup, it's not as potent as it was last year, but then the bench unit comes out, and you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and whoever
Rob is
else.
playing.
Who?
Rob Dillingham.
Rob Dillingham. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I can't believe.
Yeah, Rob is getting minutes. Rob is locked in. They said he's getting minutes.
Yeah, so that bench unit,
solid.
I think that'll be really good. But yeah, I think they're worse at guarding Jokic. Naz Reid by the end of that series was already too small to be like the first guy out on Jokic with Gobert as like the roaming rim protector. Julius Randle is smaller than Naz Reid, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's shorter for sure.
Yeah. So I think they're worse at that, and I'm also not high on Randle as a playoff player. Like I get that he hasn't been healthy for the last couple playoff rounds he's played, whatever, 2023 or whatever it was. I still just think like a lot of the offense that he displays in the regular season, it's either he's going to be an all-time great player who gets better at that shit in the postseason, or it's something more DeMar DeRozan pilled where it's just going to be more difficult to do all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm not like super high on it, but I do think he does a good job of alleviating this huge offensive load that Anthony Edwards had. I think if you just look at it from who is like a better isolation shot creator, Julius Randle is better than Karl Anthony Towns at that for me, just because he's not getting like an offensive foul or throwing the ball out of bounds every 3 possessions, which Karl Anthony Towns really struggled with. So there's some pros if you're Minnesota as far as like plugging these guys in and playing goes, but I think a lot of the upside of this move is allowing you to be more flexible for like Anthony Edwards when he's 27 years old.
Yeah, and I think Randall is a better playmaker than Cat, which is a very important thing. And he's better at being more aggressive and being more efficient in mismatches. Like we saw Cat struggle with that. He gets a switch or he gets a smaller defender, and he's not the most prolific guy at that. Randall, you get a smaller defender on Randall. He's bully ball. This is what I do.
PJ Washington can't guard Julius.
No, and he Randall knows that. Like these smaller guys, I think I tried Jamal Murray on Cat. I was seeing the video, and you wouldn't even dare do that to Julius Randle. It's just not gonna happen. So
Mhm.
I think Randall helps in that regard. Defensively, I thought Cat played really well defensively last year. He had his spots, but for the most part, for a consistent year, he was pretty good. I think Randall has his ups and downs on that end, and I think the rebounding department, Randall's a good rebounder, so that helps. My thought process is if you do end up keeping Randall, having him and Jaden out there with Rudy, where's the spacing come from? I saw somebody make this post about how Randall was a pretty good corner 3-point shooter, but you're not plugging Julius Randle into a corner. Like what
Yeah.
are we doing? Like it's just certain people, certain players, and of course I threw the idea that Randle should come off the bench, but like there's certain people that just you're not just plugging into a corner. That's probably going to be Jaden McDaniels on offense. So I think with them it's about, and I don't think Chris Finch is this genius as a coach. Not to say he's bad or nothing like that. I just don't think he's this world beater at head coaching. So the fit is definitely odd. And I don't know. I feel like giving up Cat makes sense financially, but I don't even think Ant-Man is gonna be in Minnesota at the age of 20 at the age of 27.
All right.
I think when you look at these, like let's just go back real quick. When you look at players that stay, you had Dirk. Dirk is European. That's the loyalty thing. Hakeem, for the most part, I don't care about those last years or two. Hakeem stayed with Houston, European. You had Tim Duncan, you had Manu, you had Tony. I don't care about Charlotte. I don't care. For the bulk of his career, he's in San Antonio. They were winning every fucking year. I don't think they took a year off. So like, why would you leave that situation? And then now we see guys now. Steph is one of the lone guys. Giannis was throwing the hints that, hey, if shit don't go the way I want it to go, I can leave. Fox said the same thing about Sacramento. We got to see how we're pushing the buttons. We'll see how we win. The Jokic, he's going to stay. I don't think he ever leaves Denver. He's pretty much locked in there. So there isn't many guys who really stay in those low market, mid market teams. Even Dame, he eventually left, which I understand why he left. We could see a Devin Booker leave Phoenix situation, down the road. I think it's just with these small market to mid market teams, it's really, you really have a time limit. If you don't build this team around this certain player, he can fill out a different area. He can want to go somewhere else. And I think Ant Edwards is such a big polarizing up and coming star. It's just going to be hard to kind of limit him to Minnesota.
Yeah. I'm not always super like this guy is leaving because the market is small pilled. Like that's not where my brain opts to. And part of that is because I've watched Jokic this whole time. And I felt like Giannis was the same way until like last summer when it was like, I want to win. When you start hearing that quote, I just want to win. I want to be on a competitive team. That's where I start to get a little bit nervous. And, but like, so I don't always think that way. But with Anthony Edwards, when I'm looking around at like the way this situation could go, where you are this team that is competitive really off the back of your defense. So you're built into the existence of Rudy Gobert on your team. And then you bring in Julius Randle, which that's like a whole other can of worms. I agree. There will be moments where Julius Randle gets benched. I brought it up on Twitter today. I don't know if he's part of their closing lineup. I feel more comfortable with Naz Reid out there. But if Julius Randle in a contract year, that's another thing that we had to think about with this. If he's like getting benched in his mind, he's an all-star. I'm 24, 10, and 5 a night, and you guys are playing Naz Reid over me. Like that's something where if you think back to when Jalen Brunson had 50 against the Bucks and Julius Randle was like hanging his head and he was all upset last year, you could see that same guy come out. And so once you start to look at those options, then you look 3 years down the road and it's like Rudy Gobert's cooked. He could still protect the rim. The defense is still fine. Ant's getting pretty much no help offensively. Hopefully, Naz Reid continues to improve. But
he's also a contract coming up.
Anthony Edwards?
No, Naz Reid.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like the Cat move is because that money opens up for Naz Reid, and that's something I was like, I just went through it with KCP. Like you have this guy who gives you a huge advantage in terms of like damn near all-star level player coming off the bench. Losing that guy for nothing in free agency because you're paying Cat $60 million, that's tough. And so I think when you look at them opening that money up to keep Naz Reid, that's when I start to take this angle of like maybe they're prioritizing later down the line with Anthony Edwards, because Naz is super young too. He's like 24, 25, something like that.
Young.
Yeah, he fits the Anthony Edwards timeline a lot better than a lot of the guys that they've put onto this team right now. And so, yeah, I won't say that he's like leaving for sure or anything, but I do think there's a timeline where you get 2-3 years down the road from where we're at right now, and it feels like he's one of the best players in the league, and he's been backpacking for a couple seasons at this point, especially offensively. And so, yeah, I think it's possible that he asks out. But right now, I won't start to entertain that out of respect to Minnesota fans and everything. Because as a small market fan, it does get annoying where it's like, okay, we didn't win the championship, and now everybody's like, he's leaving, he's done, he's gone.
Yeah, even Steph said some comments over the summer, had people like scared as hell. Like, is Steph gonna leave?
Just wants to be competitive, dude. Yeah. I just want a chance to win.
Yeah, like he was giving people, even me. They asked me in the pod, like, Riv, you see Steph leaving? I'm like, no, come on. He's a warrior for life. He has 4 rings here. He's not going nowhere, man. That definitely gives me a scare and a nervousness. But one more question before you go, because listen. It's football Sunday. My Eagles are on.
Hey, knock yourself out, man.
One more question, though. I don't like to do long podcasts. I hate doing it. Denver Nuggets, led by Jokic. Can I get your just overall preview for this upcoming season? How do you think you guys are going to perform? What's your realistic expectations, goals? Who's going to be your breakout player? Just walk me through Denver in a vacuum. 2024, 2025.
Okay, 2024-25. I'm pulling up their win total from last year. They won 57 games last year. That's not happening this year. Jesus Christ. Yeah, dude. I mean, 57 games, they're the fucking like 3 seed or whatever. The West is so stupid. I'm going to say if they win like 52 games, I'll be chill. Because I think the bottom of the West is going to be so good that like 52 games is worth a little bit more than it was this season. If I had to pick a breakout player, I think it's more valuable for the Nuggets for Peyton Watson to become a Christian Brown level player than it would be for Christian Brown to become like a KCP level player.
Elaborate on that. Why do you think that?
Just for like rotation, guys. I think Watson, I'm huge on his defense, and I think there are like interesting things that he provides offensively as like a lob threat and a cutter and everything, but you can say that shit about fucking Jared Vanderbilt. You need to be able to do things offensively, and he has struggled with that to the extent that he was out of the rotation in the Timberwolves series. They couldn't play him, and so if that happens again this year, I mean, they were already gassed. If that happens again this year and you're just like force feeding these like inverted pick and rolls with Saric and Westbrook in bench minutes and stuff, yeah, it's going to be a disaster. And so I think if you have 2 guys who are legit like backup impact rotation level pieces in if Watson makes that step, and then Brown's going to start, but since he's so young, I think like giving him a heavy workload and like staggering him a lot with the bench, I'm fine with that. I think he can handle it. And I just think having 2 of those guys would be more important than having this guy step into the starting lineup and having the starting lineup like not lose anything at all from the KCP departure. I think so
if Christian Brown is still for better or for worse the same player, but Peyton gets to Christian Brown level, you're still fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy with it because I also like what's the dream scenario with one off season of improvement in Christian Brown's jump shooting ability. True. Like if he could, if he's 36% next year on low volume, I'm over the fucking moon. But if I had to decide between that or between us really being able to lean on Peyton Watson for like 20 minutes a game in crucial moments of the season, I would probably opt for the latter, just because I think, I mean, it's an unhealthy relationship, but in my mind, I'm like, whatever happens, Jokic can cook. We got some offense. Whatever happens.
Hey, listen, when you have a guy like that, it's just like, fuck it, we'll figure it out. It just as long as we keep it close, he'll do it. You know, I don't have.
It's a crunch time, man.
Yeah, Peyton Watson is definitely the guy though that you kind of need to, because you're not expecting much. Julian Strawther didn't play much last year. You kind of know what Westbrook is. You know what Saric is. I really, really wish Holmes didn't tear his ACL, man. That really hurts me. And
Tragic.
Zeke Naji, what happened?
Don't fucking bring Zeke. Oh, Zeke Naji's contract is why they couldn't pay KCP this offseason.
Yeah, you guys paid him, and then like you don't play him. Why? What's going on?
I mean, I don't know. I have this problem where like I watch a bench player and he's going up against other bench guys, and I'm like, I only look at the things he's doing positively. And so when you watch Zeke Naji through that lens, it's like, oh, this guy, he's really high effort, like backup kind of tweener big man type thing. But just in terms of like consistent night to night impact, it's very rarely there. Sometimes he'll get like a good matchup that he can outwork, and he'll have like 15 points on good efficiency off of like put back layups and stuff, but he's not a particularly good defender. He doesn't space the floor. He's an all right athlete, but he's pretty consistently injured. And yeah, I mean, it's also part of it is like Mike Malone. If you're not making an impact, we don't have time to like develop you. And that's like a big thing when we saw those reports earlier this offseason. That's like there's this rift between Malone and the front office because the front office wants him to develop these young guys into role players. And he's like, if we only win 45 games, we're not making the playoffs in the West or something. So I don't have time to fuck around with everybody. If you don't prove to me that you could do it right away, like I have to get my winning players back in there. That's the philosophy he's had this entire time. And Zeke Naji had plenty of opportunity when everybody was hurt for the Nuggets. Like he was getting scratched when they were a bad team that Jokic was winning MVPs with, and he was not proving anything. And so for him to like get an opportunity back now, it's just going to be difficult.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like I remember you guys giving him that 321. Hopefully I got the numbers correctly, and then I don't see him anymore. Like
yeah,
like I literally don't. Like I seen him on 2K on the roster at the bottom, but like I don't see him play anymore. How'd you be like, bro? What the hell happened to this guy? But okay, 53 wins. I could see it.
Yeah.
Is there any team in the West you think you can't beat? And not because you obviously have the best player in the world, but just from a team construction thing. Like, is there any team who would really give you like nightmares?
I mean, Oklahoma City, when you just look at it, like, who the fuck do we have to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? That's going to be incredibly difficult. I think as far as like guys to throw at Chet Holmgren, Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon are fine, but like I still feel like
could be fine.
Yeah, but like I mean, it's Chet. He can space the floor incredibly well. He's a great cutter, lob threat, and I think he's underrated with the ball in his hands. It would be really hard for them to beat Oklahoma City, but at the same time, I think in every matchup, like if I look at the Dallas matchup, Luka's gonna cook, Jokic will cook right back, and so like I think outside of that Oklahoma City matchup where if you could get Jokic to cancel out the impact of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and maybe even like Jalen Williams combined, like if Jokic is matching them, then maybe Denver's supplementary players can overcome what the rest of Oklahoma City is doing. That's a tall task. But if I apply that thought process to what the Mavs have built or what the Wolves are right now, I feel more comfortable in those matchups. So if I had to pick one that they quote unquote can't beat, my answer is going to be OKC, but I'm not like doomsday scenario about it or anything.
And is there any hope for Michael Porter Jr. to develop any other part of his game outside the 3-point shooting?
I think one place
you're paying him a shit ton of money, and I understand he has the back problems. It hindered his development. I get that part. But damn, like, can you like do anything else? Like defense, he was solid in the playoffs. I'm not gonna say he wasn't. He's a solid rebounder, but Jesus Christ, he's 6'10". Like, what is there anything we're expecting from him?
I think he could get better defensively. There were stretches in the 2023 season where he was like a legitimately very good defender who used his height in ways that you would expect him to. Like he could come over on the help side and alter shots, and you were comfortable putting him on like a good offensive player. You're not throwing him on Devin Booker or anything, but like he was not just existing on a good defense, he was really actively contributing to it. I think he could get back to that level. And then there's like certain spots offensively where KCP was not like just taking threes. They were running a lot of actions to get him like pull up mid-range jumpers off of Jokic screens. I think a lot of those will go to Michael Porter Jr. They're not all just going to go directly to Jamal Murray. And so there's more with the departure of KCP. It's this loss, but all of his touches and minutes open up off-ball opportunities for everybody else on the floor. And I think Michael Porter Jr. could be the biggest beneficiary of that.
Okay. Listen, Joestar, I want to thank you for coming up here and giving me 51 minutes, probably going to be 52 Beautiful. Minutes of your time. Tag your stuff, man. Let them know where they can find you.
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere at Jokicjoestar. You can go listen to the State of the League podcast. If you scroll back maybe 3 episodes, we just did a Minnesota Timberwolves preview with your very own Joel Moran. So that was fun. That was a great time.
What do you say? I'm so curious. I just want to quick. What do you say?
What's crazy is like if you go to the comments on that, I didn't realize he was a Knicks fan, Anthony Edwards fan. I thought he was like a Wolves fan. And so we have him on. The comments are like, I can't fucking believe you brought this guy on to talk about the Wolves. They were so mad, dude.
Oh my God, for real?
Yeah. Like it's like we're not big enough to get like hate comments, and we don't do like the whole hot take shit either. So that was like the first one. I was like, damn, they did not like this episode, dude.
Yeah, he's an Edwards lover. He loves Ant-Man. So that all comes into play. That's I saw you guys had a Carson on up too for Golden State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we that was our last episode. Carson from Nerd Sesh. We did a Warriors preview, and that was fun. He's more involved with the Warriors team as a whole. So yeah. Some of Joel's shit, like looking back on it, there was just angles where he would be like, how good will more Naz Reid minutes be for Anthony Edwards? Just like everything is like angled towards like, how does this work out for Ant? And I was like, damn, okay. I see where people are coming from.
Yeah. It definitely is. It's funny because it's definitely, when I saw it, I was laughing. It was funny. And I saw you guys had the clip of with Joel talking about the Bucks. And that shit had me in tears, man. I'm glad y'all see when I see, man, because he's comedy, bro.
Mm-hmm. I saw him. That's why Carson was yelling that clip the other day where he let you know about whatever receiver you guys were talking about, and he went off.
Yeah, he's definitely he's funny. Oh my God, I just had a question I wanted to ask you. What was it? It's coming back. Let me think. It's coming back. I was just about to ask you something. It's coming back. It's not coming back.
Man, we were talking about the Warriors, Carson.
Yeah, no, I definitely had a question that was very important. But Joestar, I want to thank you for coming up here. Thank you for giving me the time of your day. Fans, I am gonna try to do this all year. I'll put it on my son. So it has to be something's got to give, man. So I'm gonna definitely try. Want to thank y'all for being up here. Joestar, State of the League. Follow that. Go show love to that. Fantasy Reaction. The weekly blitz, if I'm getting it right, and then of course the very big own Pick a Side podcast. I want to thank you guys for being up here, and we'll see you next time.